another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. Today I have Emily Wilkins from Marketing Metal. And hello, Emily. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I like to start off my shows with a brief introduction of yourself and just kind of explaining who you are, what you do, and then we can start diving into the other questions that I have for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Megan. I'm so excited to be here. I love what you're doing with the show. I think it's so important. Mentioned, I'm the founder and president of Marketing Metal, where we help job shop owners get the tools, guidance, and hands-on support they need to metal up their game and make their mark.
I really like everything about your name and how you just incorporated that whole sentence. I think that is great. So you had kind of an interesting journey within manufacturing. So you actually went to school for manufacturing, correct, or engineering?
So I started as a mechanical engineering student at Kettering University, and Kettering's a co-op school. So every other term we're at work from freshman year on. Like some students even start work before school. So my first co-op job was in the automotive industry, and honestly, it bored me to tears. And so I found myself hiding out in the design studio a lot.
Okay.
And so I almost left Kettering for art school, but ultimately decided to switch to business. And so Kettering's business program is quite small, but also it's very science-based and manufacturing focused. So, even though I was in a business classes, it was more in kind of a manufacturing context. I did a study abroad term in Germany, and one of our classes was a lean manufacturing class, and every Friday we took a field trip to a different manufacturing plant. So I got to go to Audi and Mercedes and BMW and all the awesome German car companies, go to their plants and see how they kind of did things. So that was really cool.
That's really cool because I feel like in a way, Germany is a little ahead of the game in terms of how they're educating the students over there in engineering and manufacturing. Like they make it part of their whole school career almost. Like they're incorporating it and exposing the students from a very young age.
Yeah.
And then students have, different tracks that they can follow specifically and then go into a career. So I think they're set up for success at a really early age. And I think that's really, really cool. Gail said real quick, hello, happy Friday. Hi, Gail. Nice to see you again. Thank you so much for joining. So what about automotive, kind of bored you? Was it just the type of work that you were doing, or what was boring about it?
Yeah, I think my experience was very small, and I don't know. I remember sitting in meetings with 20 people and having them argue over an eighth of a millimeter of something, and I don't know. It was just a lot of spreadsheets and just not super creative work. So I know it can be creative. I just probably didn't give it the chance that it deserved.
So how did you, what led you to starting Marketing Metal then? How did that whole journey start and begin for you?
Yeah, so from my time at Kettering, really, my senior thesis project that I did at Kettering was at a small fabrication shop. They had developed this line of dollies for marine mechanics to use to work on outboard and inboard motors. And I was responsible for developing the brand and the website and the marketing materials and everything. So that was my first real full kind of marketing project that I did. And it was just this small shop that, I got to go use the robotic welder and the bender and stuff when they, they needed an extra hand in the shop. And that's kind of been my career. Like most of my jobs have been at just these small manufacturing shops, where I was the marketing department, but also got a chance to get my hands dirty. So
that's really cool. I feel like your mechanical engineering experience has helped, connect some of the dots between the marketing world and then what actually happens on the shop. So that's awesome. One of the things that I'm curious about, was engineering and manufacturing something that like was within your family as you were growing up, and that's why you kind of started off pursuing it? And then, what is it about the design side of things where you're marketing for manufacturers that's a little bit more exciting for you than what you would probably do as a mechanical engineer?
Yeah. So I grew up near Detroit. So I come from a family of automakers. My mom and dad met at GM. He was a vehicle testing technician, and she was an electrical engineer. She ended up going back to school to become a calculus professor at GMI, which is now Kettering, which is how I ended up there. But yeah, they were always really adamant about exposing me to STEM. It wasn't called that back then, of course, but I went to science summer camps, and I spent a lot of time at the Henry Ford Museum, and just doing a lot of DIY projects and spending time with my dad in the shop, in his garage. And I'll never forget when I was like 10 or 11, my dad took me out to dinner and started drawing a diagram and explaining how a car engine worked. And, I'm like, why are you telling me this right now? Like, we're having dinner. And much to my surprise, he was going to take me to teach me how to drive, but I had to understand what was going on under the hood before I got to learn to drive. So
that's really cool, though. I mean, so I never had that experience with my dad. He's been in manufacturing his entire life, and he kind of kept what he did a secret from all of us. Like, we knew he had to travel a lot, but we didn't necessarily understand why. But I feel like I would be a lot better maintaining my car if I had that kind of influence in my life, so I think that's
I still don't
interesting.
maintain my own car, but I at least can talk, somewhat like knowledgeably about it.
Right. So that's really cool that he set it up that way. I was talking a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you saw this episode, but I was talking with Chris Granger, and he was talking about some of the things that he does to kind of expose his little girls to STEM stuff. And I think that's a really cool idea. I'm going to have to talk to my husband about that and maybe see if he can do something like that with our boys, even my daughter, because she doesn't know how to take care of anything in a car or talk about it. She's more like me in that aspect. But I want to talk more about marketing metal and kind of understand what you're doing with marketing metal. So it's a really cool name. And I think manufacturers, not all of them, some of them are really good in their marketing department, but a lot of them are struggling with, sharing their brand story in a humanizing way. There's the old school way of marketing and manufacturing, and then you're starting to see this newer type of manufacturing where it's more human and not so B2B. And I wanted to kind of understand, when you were starting to build marketing metal, what were some of the challenges or roadblocks that you were seeing amongst manufacturers on how they were approaching, their potential audiences? What were they really struggling with that you felt you could fill that gap for them?
Yeah. I mean, kind of what you said, like a lot of their websites and materials were just outdated and generic and blah, and just kind of more, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, like not personality driven, like not human, just more like, trying to be professional or like succinct. Engineers are very, or mechanical people tend to be very like succinct in their messaging. So yeah, there are just a lot of shops that had really outdated stuff with generic content, and just as many who really they want to level up, but they really have no idea where to start. So it can be really intimidating when they see how much their competitors are doing online, and then they talk to a marketing agency and who generally knows nothing about what they do and wants to charge them an arm and a leg for services that they don't really understand. So we really developed this stupid simple process that works for them. We don't put them through the agony of the hour-long sales pitch only to send them this massive proposal that might as well be gibberish to them. Instead we start with this thing called the setup, where we spend 2 hours with the shop owner, asking all sorts of questions about where they are, how they got there, where they want to be. And then we build them a roadmap, and it's a small investment for them that answers their questions and gives them the confidence and direction that they need to move their business forward, whether that means hiring us to help them or doing it on their own. So it's really kind of reversed of what a lot of agencies do, I think.
I think it's great too that you have that manufacturing experience as a mechanical engineer, because you at least know the jargon and where that disconnect is from someone who might not be within the sector, and you can start making those connections. Because by trade, I'm a technical writer, and a lot of what I do is to try to take that really technical information and adapt it to a way that people who might not be engineers or manufacturers can understand it, and then make it more enjoyable to read too, because not everybody enjoys technical writing or information. It gets kind of boring and just repetitive. I want to share some of these comments. Love all you're doing, Meaghan. Thank you so much, Gail. I appreciate that. She also said, nice to meet you, Emily. I'm across the border from Detroit in Windsor, Canada. Maybe you two guys can meet. Gail does a lot of marketing stuff too. We're part of a group called Manufacturing Mafia, and she has so many great ideas, especially within manufacturing. She's another individual that really understands, how to market for manufacturing and tell brand stories. So definitely you two should connect on LinkedIn. And then we have Tamara Bradley. Love hearing your story, Emily, of how you got into manufacturing. I have a special place in my heart for anyone with blue collar blood, blue collar life, manufacturing women. Yes, absolutely. But I think a lot of people too think that it's really easy to just slap things together and not be strategic.
Yeah.
In terms of how to share your brand story. So can you maybe provide some tips or helpful hints to manufacturers who might be struggling with where to start in terms of manufacturing to the right, or not manufacturing, marketing to the right audience? Where should they start?
Yeah, I think having a clear vision for what you want for your company is really important. Starting with the why. Why are you doing this? Why do you care? Why do you really want it? What about this is exciting to you and your team? If you have employees or whatever, getting them involved and understanding why they're here and why they why did they pick you? Because they didn't have to, right? I think that's really important first step. Looking at what your competitors are doing, not to copy them, but just to get ideas. And, try to use your personality. Who are you? Are you funny? Do you like funny engineering memes? Are you I don't know. You don't have to be funny either. You can be whatever, just show your personality, show that you're human, show that you care about more than just, the things that you make. And yeah.
I think that's a good point too, because one of the conversations that I was having in a side group, it's the manufacturing group, someone brought up, the social media channels, and they shared a really good graphic on, the percentage of who's where and who's talking about what on each of the channels.
Mhm.
And I'm still kind of questioning if TikTok should be a place for manufacturers because, we're trying to close the skills gap, and I'm on the fence with it. Like, one, I personally enjoy watching some of the videos because they're pretty ridiculous. And there's so many funny people in the world that I didn't realize until TikTok came about.
Mhm.
But I did notice that some CNC machinist companies are using it to create video on, create video in their shop, and then they're sharing those videos in LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's a really cool way to kind of utilize it. And I don't know, we have this manufacturing skills gap, and we're trying to attract younger generations. And I know a lot of kids are on TikTok. So it's like, why not use that platform? And there was a pretty interesting conversation because some people are like, I don't know. And I just remember when I first started out as a technical writer, I wanted to use Facebook to connect to some of our audience. And they're like, that's so unprofessional. No one's going to follow us. And now everybody was on Facebook. So what are your thoughts about using some of those non-traditional ways to really connect with your audience? And do you have any ideas or suggestions that manufacturers could start looking into based on who their audience might be?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to try, even if it falls flat. At least you're trying and doing something. TikTok is an interesting animal, but it can be really fun. It can be a fun way to engage your team, and get them, I don't know, more excited about their work and get their creativity to come out. It's really just trying, looking around at what other people are doing, and it doesn't have to be what other people are doing. Like you said, 10 years ago, Facebook was like, you wouldn't be caught dead on Facebook at work, but now we use it as a tool for work, to connect.
And a lot of people are getting annoyed with it right now too.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's like the tables have turned on that one. Tamara had a question for you. She goes, Emily, are you primarily marketing products for companies, or are you also marketing companies to potential employees? We found ourselves in recent years competing with other manufacturers for people/employees and not so much for customers.
Yeah. So hiring is a huge thing for my customers right now. So we are focusing a lot on recruiting. And I tend to not really work with, I'm not marketing products generally. I market services more, like custom manufacturing shops, or, I work with robotics integrator, things like that. So, but yeah, using it as a way to reach potential employees is really, it's a hot thing right now. I don't know if I think that's what she was asking.
So in terms of that marketing for future employees, what are some of the things that you're doing to help, get manufacturers really connected with their surrounding communities and outside communities? Because I know the lack of talent is a huge thing right now. And I talked to a company in the East Coast called Lanco, and they're in Maine. And it's not that they're, not trying to diversify their workforce, or, not trying to hire talented people. It's just that there's no one in the population within Maine.
Yeah.
It's really small. So their talent pool is really small, and they're having a hard time even getting outside of there, and they're hiring recruiters and all that stuff. So what are some creative ways that you could suggest to manufacturers to maybe be more attracted to that next generation workforce? Because I feel like a lot of younger generations too are still kind of questioning if manufacturing is a sector to even join for a career pathway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, video, like we were talking about TikTok, video is a really great way to do that, to just show that you can have fun with it, in terms of showing that you're diverse when you're in Maine, that's really hard. And that's, I mean, we struggle with that too. I'm in West Michigan, and it's, can be pretty homogeneous sometimes, but just showing that you're down to earth and you have fun with the things that you do is, I think, speaks volumes. And it goes a long way. And yeah, not being afraid to use those platforms and letting your team get involved and try doing one of the TikTok video trends and see where it leads you.
Or go on Snapchat. I know there's a company in Illinois, HM Manufacturing, and Nicole Wolter. She's great. She's awesome. And she actually brings in students from surrounding high schools and stuff as interns or apprenticeships, and she puts them in charge of all of their social media. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a clever idea. And she doesn't really tell them what to do. She just says, okay, you're going to manage this. Yep. And allows them to sort of take off with it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's interesting because they're going to know how to communicate with kids of their own age, right? So it's interesting to see. And she's been really successful at it. Mm-hmm. And she's got a lot of followers and stuff on her channel. So it's really cool to see how she's bringing in younger generations, allowing them to use the tools that they're used to using in terms of, marketing themselves out there, and then seeing that growth. And it shows her culture, it shows what they're making, and it's really being successful. So with Mavens of Manufacturing, my ultimate goal is to really get more women into the sector because we're still low in percentage wise. And the more women that I talk to in a variety of areas within manufacturing, it's interesting to see that women are still representing that low 1 to 5%, even in the different areas. So in terms of marketing, do you have any suggestions or thoughts on how manufacturers can maybe market themselves to be more approachable for women as well too? Because I know that one of the things that we like to do is if we don't really see ourselves in a group of people, we tend to kind of stay away from it and not approach that. And we want to be approachable to everyone. We want people to come join the sector, help close that skills gap. So for Mavens of Manufacturing specifically, what sort of things can manufacturers do to just make women be like, yeah, I can see myself working at that company and actually flourishing there? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a hard thing to do because you don't want to bring in actresses to pretend like they work at your company. You don't have women working for you. It's hard because you don't want to be inauthentic about it, right? But at the same time, it is important to lift women up and show that you support them. And you can do that. There's ways that you can do that without, being, or there's ways that you can do it authentically, I think. Celebrating International Day of Women or history of women in manufacturing, things like that. Celebrating women and pointing out women that are doing cool things right now. If you have a channel, you can share share something that they're doing. It doesn't have to be your own content necessarily. Follow women in manufacturing, follow shows like this, try to, connect with the women that are doing that stuff. And and I think just, again, showing that you're human, showing that you care and that you, this is something that you want for your company,
Yeah, we definitely need to make some changes to get even younger generations attracted to the sector, because a lot of them, I did an event back in October, and I was grateful for that event because I was able to talk to the students specifically and ask them questions like, okay, why did you sign up for this class? Mm-hmm. What are your plans after school? And a lot of them, even though they were taking these courses, they were just like, we don't know what we want to do. And I think that's a pretty fair answer for kids these days. Like my daughter, she wants to go into medical, she wants to be a surgical nurse. But recently she kind of had a breakdown because I think it hit her finally that she's graduating this year. And she's just like, wait a minute, is this something that I really want to do or get involved with? So being able to expose kids within your community with some of the things that you're doing, like absolutely try to open your doors up for facility tours. And if you have groups of kids coming in, make sure that you have some women representing your company for those 1 to 5 girls that might be along for those tours. Because the event I did, there was 30 students and only 4 of them were girls. So, but make sure that you have someone that can speak to them and answer their questions too. Because one of the presenters, Tim Wilborn, brought his wife on, and the girl students were like, yes, thank you so much for including, women in this conversation, because now we are comfortable asking questions. So I think that's some good tips right there. Well, Emily, I want to thank you so much for coming today on Mavens of Manufacturing and sharing, information about marketing metal. Before I let you go, one last question I just want to ask you, is there anything else that, you want to share with manufacturers out there who might be struggling, being approachable with some of their communities, or, any advice that you can give to them on how to be more approachable within their communities and what they can do in terms of marketing, especially if they're a smaller company? Because I know a lot of smaller companies don't have very big budgets for marketing, and they have 1 or 2 people. So can you provide some advice for them?
Get your whole team involved, especially if you're a small team. Bring everybody in and have fun with it. Don't be afraid to try something. And like you said, offer job shadowing opportunities, bring in local schools for tours. GM used to have these really cool open house events that they would put on demonstrations and have hands-on activities and stuff. And obviously GM is a huge company and they have a lot of resources to do that, but smaller companies can do stuff like that too. And kids love to see, what their parents do at work, and it helps them imagine themselves doing something similar too. So
great advice. Well, Allie said you two are awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for listening, Allie. I appreciate it. Before I let you go, if more people want to connect with you and learn more about marketing metal, where should they go and how can they get a hold of you?
Well, they can go to marketingmetal.com or connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Emily, again for joining us today. For everyone tuning in, I appreciate you joining us on another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. I hope you all have a really fantastic Friday and a great weekend, and tune in next week for another Mavens of Manufacturing episode. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Meaghan.
This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.